Can you imagine waking up one morning and seeing Sidney Crosby in a Montreal Canadiens jersey? Does that image fill you with excitement or absolute dread, depending on which fan base you belong to? That's the question burning through the hockey world right now. And frankly, it's one that sends shivers down the spine of every Penguins fan who's watched Sidney Crosby define an era in Pittsburgh. We're talking about a player who isn't just the face of a franchise. He is the franchise, the captain, the legend, the man who brought 3 Stanley Cups to a city that bleeds black and gold. Yet here we are, once again discussing possibility of Sid the Kid wearing different colors. The very thought seems almost sacrilegious, doesn't it? Just 1 year ago, Sidney Crosby put pen to paper on a new contract that would keep him in the black and gold through the 2026-27 season. It was supposed to be the final chapter of a storybook career, all written in Pittsburgh. A fairy tale ending for a player who's given everything to one organization. But in the NHL, where loyalty and business collide like bodies against the boards, nothing is ever truly set in stone. Despite that commitment, despite everything Crosby has built in Pittsburgh over nearly 2 decades, the rumor mill keeps churning. And one name keeps surfacing with uncomfortable persistence: the Montreal Canadiens. Why Montreal? Why now? And more importantly, is there any substance to this speculation, or is it just another off-season fantasy designed to generate clicks and controversy? Frank Saravalli of Bleacher Report recently threw gasoline on this smoldering fire during an appearance on Sportsnet's Big Show with Ruskin Rose. What he revealed wasn't just idle speculation. It was a roadmap to what many consider the unthinkable. I simply don't think it's really crossed Sidney Crosby's mind to leave the Penguins, as far as I know, Saravalli stated, offering initial comfort to the Pittsburgh faithful. But then came the gut punch. But 2 things. First, it's going to have to be on his terms. He's going to have to ask the Penguins. They're not going to ask if he has interest in moving. And second, it's going to have to be for a really special situation and scenario. Let that sink in for a moment. We're not talking about the Penguins shopping their captain. We're talking about a scenario where Crosby himself would have to initiate the conversation with the organization that drafted him first overall in 2005, the team he's led to 3 Stanley Cup championships, the franchise he's carried on his back through injuries and rebuilds. They would never dare suggest he leave. This would have to be Crosby's call, and his alone. But what constitutes a really special situation and scenario? That's where Montreal enters the conversation. And suddenly the impossible starts to feel just a tiny bit possible. For those who followed Crosby's career from the beginning, the Montreal connection isn't new. The Nova Scotian native grew up in the hockey-obsessed culture of Eastern Canada, where the Montreal Canadiens aren't just a team, they're a religion. The Habs represent hockey royalty, a franchise with 24 Stanley Cup banners hanging from the rafters of the Bell Center. For a player of Crosby's stature and historical awareness, the allure of joining such a storied organization isn't entirely dismissible. Moreover, Montreal has been showing signs of life under head coach Martin St. Louis. The team's young core is developing, the system is taking shape, and there's a palpable sense that the Canadiens are building towards something special. For a player in the twilight of his career, the opportunity to be part of a rising contender while staying relatively close to home could theoretically hold appeal. But here's where theory crashes headfirst into reality. Crosby's current contract runs through 2027 and includes significant signing bonuses. At 38 years old, he's carrying an $8.7 million cap hit. Not astronomical by superstar standards, but substantial enough to create serious complications for any potential acquiring team. The Canadiens, despite their recent improvements, aren't exactly swimming in cap space. Fitting Crosby's contract onto their books would require financial gymnastics that would make an Olympic athlete jealous. Any trade would require Crosby's explicit approval, thanks to the no-movement clause embedded in his contract. This isn't a situation where management can make a unilateral decision. The player holds all the cards, and historically, Crosby has shown zero interest in playing those cards anywhere but Pittsburgh. Let's be brutally honest here. The logistics alone make the scenario borderline fantasy. We're not just talking about moving a player. We're talking about relocating a living legend, a player whose number will hang in the rafters the moment he retires, whose statue likely already has a design sketch somewhere in the Penguins' front office. Here's something that doesn't get discussed enough in these trade rumor fever dreams. Sidney Crosby isn't just playing hockey in Pittsburgh. He's playing his hockey under a system perfectly designed for him. The Penguins have built an environment that maximizes everything Crosby does best. His board work, his ability to win puck battles, his vision in the neutral zone, his chemistry with line mates Ricard Raquel and Brian Rust. These aren't elements that can be packaged up and shipped to Montreal like furniture in a moving truck. Crosby's game at 38 is a masterclass in efficiency and intelligence. He's no longer the explosive end-to-end dynamo of his youth, but he's evolved into something arguably more impressive. A cerebral player who controls games through positioning, anticipation, and almost supernatural hockey IQ. The Penguins' offensive cycles, their prolonged zone time, their ability to generate high-quality chances, all of it is built around Crosby's unique skill set. Starting over in a new system with new line mates, learning new patterns and tendencies, that's a young player's game. For someone in the final chapters of their career, the learning curve isn't just steep, it's potentially career-shortening. One of the most persistent narratives surrounding these trade rumors is the idea that Crosby might want one more legitimate shot at a Stanley Cup, and that Pittsburgh can't provide that opportunity. But is that narrative actually true? The Penguins aren't the powerhouse they were during their championship runs. That's undeniable. But they're far from a bottom feeder. They remain competitive. They make the playoffs more often than not. And as long as Crosby is on the ice, they have a chance. Hockey is a sport where hot goaltending and timely scoring can turn a wild card team into a champion. Just ask the 2012 Los Angeles Kings or the 2019 St. Louis Blues. Montreal, for all their improvement, isn't a cup contender right now. They're a team on the rise, certainly, but they're still years away from being considered a legitimate threat. If Crosby's motivation were purely about winning one more championship, there would be other destinations that make far more sense than Montreal. Teams that are one piece away from contention, not teams still building their foundation. Let's talk about something that can't be measured in statistics or cap space: legacy. Sidney Crosby's legacy is already secure. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer, a generational talent, a player who will be mentioned in the same breath as Gretzky, Lemieux, or when historians discuss the game's all-time greats. But there's something uniquely powerful about a one-team career. In an era of player movement where superstars change jerseys like fashion accessories, staying with one organization for an entire career has become increasingly rare and increasingly valued. Crosby has the opportunity to join an exclusive club of legends who never wore another NHL uniform. That kind of loyalty resonates not just with fans, but with the player himself. Throughout his career, Crosby has consistently emphasized his commitment to Pittsburgh. He's taken team-friendly deals to help the organization build around him. He's mentored young players, embraced the community, and become synonymous with the city itself. Walking away from that, even for a storied franchise like Montreal, would fundamentally alter how his career is remembered. Here's perhaps the most important factor in this entire discussion. The Pittsburgh Penguins organization will never, under any circumstances, initiate a conversation about trading Sidney Crosby. It's simply not going to happen. The franchise understands what Crosby means, not just to their on-ice success, but to their brand, their fan base, and their place in hockey history. General managers get fired for making franchise-altering mistakes. Trading Sidney Crosby, even if it somehow made sense on paper, would be a fireable offense before the ink dried on the trade call. The backlash would be nuclear, the fan revolt would be immediate, and the organizational damage would be irreparable. So we're left with a scenario where Crosby would have to request a trade, something he's shown absolutely no inclination to do. He'd have to identify Montreal as his preferred destination, despite the financial complications and system adjustments. The Canadiens would have to perform salary cap sorcery to make the numbers work, and Pittsburgh would have to reluctantly agree to trade their greatest player in franchise history. When you lay out like that, the whole thing sounds less like a realistic possibility and more like a fever dream concocted during a slow news cycle. Look, I get it. Trade rumors are fun. Imagining Sidney Crosby in a Canadiens jersey, playing the Bell Center, adding his name to Montreal's legendary history, It makes for great conversation at the bar or on sports talk radio. But sometimes we need to step back and recognize when a rumor is just noise and when it's actually signal. Sidney Crosby signed a contract extension 1 year ago, knowing exactly what he was doing. He wasn't hedging his bets or keeping his options open. He was making a statement. I'm finishing my career in Pittsburgh, and that's final. The man has earned the right to control his own destiny, and his destiny is clearly, unequivocally tied to the Penguins. Could some unforeseen circumstance change that? Could there be a scenario so special, so unique, so compelling that Crosby reconsiders? In theory, sure, anything's possible. But betting on that scenario is like betting on a perfect game in baseball. Technically possible, but so unlikely that it's not worth the mental energy. The reality is this. Sidney Crosby will retire as a Pittsburgh Penguin. His number 87 will hang in the rafters. His statue will stand outside the arena. And decades from now, when people talk about the greatest to ever wear the black and gold, his name will be first on the list. That's not speculation. That's certainty. What do you think? Am I being too dismissive of the possibility? Or is this trade rumor exactly what I think it is? Pure fantasy? Drop your thoughts in the comment below. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into one of hockey's most persistent rumors, smash that like button and let's keep this conversation going. Do you want me to adjust the length or change the emotional tone in any specific sections?